But you don't have to give these people your energy. You can instead be like, I love you and I tried. And you can decide you're going to protect your peace, put yourself first, validate yourself, and you don't care what they think of that. Hello, welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to protect your peace. It's nice to look out for other people and to care about people, but there are some instances where I think you need to take a step back. I've certainly been finding this recently. I've done on my channel a couple videos about how to stop caring what other people think of you. So I will leave one of them if you want to check that out. But in this video, I want to talk more about your relationship with yourself and the things that we need to accept about other people and how we can decide to prioritize ourselves in certain instances where people just aren't going to change. This is really difficult. I've been going through this a lot recently. We have to remember that we can't change other people. This is a fairly obvious thing, but I think it is particularly difficult to accept when people are making harmful choices because let me speak from my perspective and hopefully you can relate. I can see that their behaviour is harmful and particularly long term I'm worried about them. But I also know that I can't change them. I can only share information and hope that they come to their own conclusion. I've also been feeling recently, I say that I worry about these people or this person. I say that I worry, and as I'm saying that, I almost feel guilty about it, which is so strange because I'm like, the reason that I'm worried is because I care about this person, and so I want them to make good choices. To be feeling ashamed about being worried about someone, it's just a very weird space. But I think some people can be like this if they're defensive about their choices. And I know if you're someone who knows me and you're watching this, or you have been following me on my channel, but particularly if you're someone who knew me and my addiction I'm talking about, I was on the other side of this, but I think that kind of makes it more annoying for me because I can see both the similarities and the differences. So obviously what I'm describing here is very similar to what someone goes through in an addiction. You will be observing your loved one spiraling and you can't do anything about it because it's up to them to make a choice to change. There are things that you can do, obviously. I don't think that it's a good idea if someone is spiraling in an addiction to just leave them in their room and not help them, not speak to them, or at least not try and speak to them when they're drunk, not give them any food and check that they're eating. I don't think it's a good idea to just leave someone to fester. I don't think it's a good idea to leave someone in that sense. Obviously there are limits on what you can do, but I really think that bring them a cup of tea every once in a while, you know? This person is in a lot of pain. But I think because I have been on both sides of it, I can see where there is some hope for change. But this is the thing. If we're talking about protecting your peace, there comes a point where if someone is making clear that they have no interest in changing, they have no interest in hearing new information, in changing the way that they see the world, there is really nothing you can do. And that's hard to witness. But if you want to protect your peace and protect yourself, you just need to start limiting your time with this person. And depending on who the person is, that's going to be really hard as well. If someone is making me feel bad for worrying about them, that's probably a sign that I care too much in the context of our relationship and I need to just let them get on with whatever they're doing. Which leads us on to the next thing, which is, do they show you the same care? Now, like I said, I'm thinking of a particular situation where I'm being made to feel bad for worrying about someone or thinking that maybe they could do something differently. That's a very strange way to feel like caring is bad or to feel like worrying is bad. And I'm not talking about worrying as in being anxious. I know the difference. If people cared, they would ask me and I'd be able to say, oh, funny you should ask. It feels very different. I know anxiety is irrational, but I still feel it. Whereas worry, that can sometimes be very justified. If a person's decisions are harmful, it's normal for you to worry about them. But if someone is making me feel bad for worrying, if they are not showing you the same care, and if they're even making you feel bad for caring, again, it's a question of learning to protect your peace and taking a step back because they do not see your relationship in the same way that you do. And that's hard to accept as well, depending on who the person is. But they clearly do not value your opinion. They think that their job is to placate you instead of actually listening to what you're saying, or not even to do that. They think that you're overreacting. I have really learned not to take people seriously who say that I'm too sensitive, because that's not a bad thing. Look around at the world. I don't think we're suffering from an abundance of compassion. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing for me to care a lot. And yet that has been the way I've been made to feel sometimes. And that's not right. That feels very discordant for me. I feel the best where I'm in a space where I can express that I care and it's not treated with disdain or treated as something that I'm overly anxious about or that I'm too attached to. The way that I am is to want to care And so to protect my peace, I have to stop being around these people who don't care in the same way. And it's easier to protect my peace when I remember that no one else is caring in the same way as I am. So why am I putting all of this effort into trying to help this person where they don't even care about why I'm worried? They just think that it's an overreaction. Like, why am I bothering to invest in this relationship when I'm caring so much and they are not caring at all? And not only do they not care about themselves, and that's what I'm worried about, but also they don't care that I care. Like, they're not even registering the fact that she's so upset about this or so affected about this or this is such a big thing. The fact that she cares so much, maybe that's something that I should be paying attention to. They instead dismiss it and think, oh, she's just anxious, or oh, she just needs to like get a life, or she cares too much. And I'm like, why is caring too much a bad thing? You don't need to dial back how you care. If someone tells you care too much about something, you don't need to stop caring about it. Instead, you need to protect your peace and be like, oh, okay, this relationship is not for me anymore. We should spend less time together. So we've talked a bit about reasons why to protect your peace. I think you don't want to disrupt the way that you are. You care for a reason. Things are important to you for a reason. I believe that things are put in our hearts for a reason. If you feel something very strongly, there is a reason for that, even if the world does not understand what that is. So we've talked a bit about why it's important to protect your peace, why it's important to stay being you. But I think now if we talk about how to protect your peace, I have found writing has been so helpful because it gives me a way to express everything. Yes, it's important to cry or to process what you're feeling. Just sit with it and feel those uncomfortable feelings. It's horrible. Feel that weight of I care so much and they don't even care. But then you can do something with those feelings after you feel like you've sat with them enough and it's no longer productive or helpful. After you've had your cry, then you can think, right, I'm going to write about this. It helps to organise my thoughts. It can also be helpful to do something. I was listening to Alicia Gogan's podcast, the Glow Up Secrets podcast, her most recent episode. She talks about emotional release through writing. You write down everything you feel about a particular situation or a particular person. This is not something to give to the person. This is not something to even keep. You need to burn this or rip it up and throw it away, delete it if you typed it. The valuable part of it is not to have it and be like, I wrote this is how I feel. The important part is the writing of it. So once it's written, get rid of it, because you want to write it with no judgment. So you're going to write horrible things, like things that you will even judge yourself for writing as you're writing it. This is far beyond this person doesn't care about me. This is like horrible stuff. I'm not saying like you're writing, I hope all this bad stuff happens to them, but everything you think in those heated moments when maybe you're having an argument with someone and you say something and then you regret it afterwards, think of like that kind of thing, but 100 times worse. And these feelings that you have, they're not anything to be ashamed of. They don't have to be you. Remember that your feelings aren't facts. So just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean you actually believe it. I've been reading No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz and it is so interesting. I love that it's both practical and also informative. Like even in the first, 10 pages, he's getting you to do different exercises. Like he's not just describing the internal family system. He is showing you how to implement this yourself. So I love that. I've not finished it yet, but he's talking about how there are different parts within you that want different things. So there will be a part within you when you're thinking about this situation and the reason why you want to protect your peace. There will be different parts within you. There will be a part that's saying, but I love this person. There will be a part that's saying, I hate how this person makes me feel small. There will be a part that's saying, I wish I didn't need this person, but I do. There will be a part that's saying, I never want to speak to this person again and mean it. Like I never want to see them again. There will be all these different voices. And just because you have those thoughts of, I never want to see this person again, that doesn't make you a bad person. That's why he calls it No Bad Parts, because he's like, there is nothing inherently bad. Each part, each thought, it has a role in protecting you from abandonment, from rejection. There is a point to it. It's not just there to be mean and hurtful. So doing some kind of writing like emotional release, I will leave a link to the podcast and to the book that I just talked about, can be really freeing because it gives you space to write everything you're feeling about this situation in a non-judgmental way, because hopefully as you're writing you can recognise the different parts of yourself and you don't have to be attaching yourself to the fact that you've written this horrible thing. You can just be like, that is a part of me that needs to be expressed. It's there now. I don't actually believe that, but it's gone. Once you finish writing it, then you can throw away the paper. So in terms of a practical thing, if you want to learn how to protect your peace, writing can be so healing. I love writing so much. So doing something like that exercise we talked about, but even writing something as like a document of what's happened, just so that you can refer back to it and be like, oh, I did try and help. Oh, I did feel like this at this point, and maybe hopefully in the future you'll be able to look back and the situation will have resolved in some way and you can think, oh my gosh, I remember 6 months ago, a year ago, I wrote this and I was feeling really hopeless about this situation, but look, we're a year on and things are a lot better. So writing about it is not only about releasing your feelings and trying to process and deal with the fact that there's this person or this situation that's causing you a lot of pain, but it can also then serve as a reminder that things are never static and things can change. Writing is just a good way to validate yourself, but I think validating yourself and your feelings in general is another good way to protect your peace. If we're talking about practical ways to do this, you need to find people who think similarly to you, or at least people who are not conflict avoidant. Because the thing is, for me, I am not afraid of having an argument with someone, and I don't argue for the sake of having an argument. I want to actually make progress and try and either understand their point of view or try and get them to understand my point of view. And for such a long time I thought, oh, maybe I do like conflict. I'd hear from this one person like, you just like to argue, that's why you're bringing this up, you just like to argue. And that never felt right for me. But you know when you're told something so often that you start to believe it, I was like, oh, maybe I do like to argue. But then I had this interaction with my auntie a couple months ago where she'd said something that upset me. I decided to just go up and be direct and be like, you said this hurt me. And we were able to have such a productive conversation, and that conversation has been such a light for me because that made me realise I actually don't like arguing. What I like is reaching some kind of consensus, feeling seen, not having my feelings invalidated, working through a problem, understanding why someone is feeling that way. Because that's what we did. It was only like a 10-minute, not even that, maybe like a 5-minute conversation with my auntie. I was like, oh, we can have different opinions and it doesn't have to be horrible. Like, we don't have to be mean. It seems like a stupid thing to have such like an epiphany moment about, but I really do keep returning to that conversation because it's like, no, I know that it's possible to have a difficult conversation and for the outcome not to be both people are upset or one person is upset. Like, it's possible to have a difficult conversation and to actually move forward with that, and for that to be something that strengthens your relationship, gives you more respect for each other, as opposed to something that adds more distance. And so I think if you can try and find people who make you feel respected, as opposed to people who invalidate you or belittle you, that might be an obvious thing to say, but it's also hard to find those people who are happy to have uncomfortable conversations. I like the Always Sunny podcast. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of my favourite TV shows, and I love their podcast. In most of the episodes, they go through an episode of the show and talk about like their memories, their process of writing the show. It's really interesting for all sorts of reasons. But on the podcast, they were talking about this issue of conflict resolution, and they were talking about it in a creative sense. So they're talking about how they have to make decisions when they're making this TV show. What direction do they want to go in with certain storylines? What happens to this character? What's the best thing to do? And they will have arguments or disagreements about this. And they were saying most people are conflict avoidant, but if you can engage in these conversations, that's how you build a better relationship. Because it's true, like, people would much rather pretend a problem doesn't exist than deal with it. I know this is true because I used to do this in my addiction. I knew I had a problem, but I was like, not ready to deal with that just yet. And everyone else in my life was like, yeah, we'll go along with that. Let's pretend it's not a problem. See how that went. Like, people don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. They don't want to engage with reality. So I know it's hard to find these people, but in the meantime, you can write about your feelings. You can validate yourself. I've done a few videos about self-validation, so I will link one of them for you. It's hard when you're surrounded by people who you feel don't value you or who don't care about things in the same way that you do, but you don't need to become like them to fit in. Like, you don't need to change who you are. You can instead be like, no, I'm going to stay like this. You be doing that. Like, I tried. And you can decide you're going to protect your peace and you don't care what they think of that. Because this is the other thing. These people who are making bad decisions, they don't care that you think that they're doing the wrong thing. They don't care. So it's like, well, why am I caring about you? It literally doesn't cross their mind. They're not worried about how they're perceived. So it's like, well, why am I bothering then? I can preserve my energy, protect my peace by not trying to help you. It's weird. It's a weird thing because I know what I'm saying. It might seem like I'm trying to like control people because I'm being so vague, I guess, because I don't want to actually talk about the direct situation. The point is it's difficult, but you don't have to give these people your energy. You can instead protect your peace, put yourself first, validate yourself, prioritise your relationship with yourself, and prioritise your relationship with other people who are willing to have difficult conversations, or prioritise spending time trying to find people who are willing to have difficult conversations, who are willing to engage in conflict, not for the sake of conflict, but to grow in an understanding of each other and to grow to respect each other. It's difficult, but if you are struggling with this, no, you are not alone. I am there struggling with you. If you want to watch another one of my videos, I will leave Stop Trying to Get Everyone to Understand You, because I think that deals with some similar themes to what we've talked about in this video. I also at the beginning did mention my How to Stop Caring What Other People Think of You, so I will leave my unbothered video if you want to watch that as well. God bless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.